Hi everybody, I'm Jen from Get Me More, and I have a fantastic guest today to talk about his fantastic movie In Plainview, Matt Watterworth, who is the director of a feature that will be released on January 29th. Check inplainview.ca to find out where you can stream it. Matt, thank you for being here today. I know you're busy.
Thank you. You're far too kind. That's very kind of you to say. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I know that we have somewhat of a limited time, and I like to go directly at tell me, please, what drove you to direct a feature film?
Oh man, I mean, that's a that goes back to childhood, man. I mean, the first time I sort of even understood that what I was seeing on a screen was not just the actors sort of coming up with it off the top of their head, that there were people and a huge machine making it happen. I knew I had the desire to be a part of that machine. And for me, when I was younger, acting was something of interest to me as well. And so I was sort of following that route a little bit. Um, there's a movie called Big Fish that really had a big impact on me when it comes to just storytelling. A story about storytelling. And then I was lucky enough to go to an arts high school called the Victoria School of the Arts, where I did everything from dance to radio to acting to film and television. And I was in a high school class called I don't even know what the class was called. TV, I think it was called TV 101 or something like that. And I met a mentor named Steve Ashworth, who was the guy who got me interested in filmmaking in the first place, and really sort of changed my perspective of like, well, maybe I want to be more behind the camera than in front of the camera. And ever since then, I've sort of been pursuing that. And of course, for a lot of us, I think the feature film is the step one, is the first, not step one, the ultimate goal, sort of, and you take many steps to get there. But yeah, it's and I always wonder if that's true for filmmakers now, because we have the TikToks and we've got the YouTubes. I don't know if making a feature film is still what high school me would have been interested in, but for me, that was always the goal, making the first feature film.
Awesome. And considering that this is your first feature, what made you decide this particular story? I know David Doré, the screenwriter, wrote a concept back in 2011, and so
Kevin Dory, yeah.
and so it's been in people's minds for a little bit. But what made you decide this is the film that you wanted to direct as your first feature?
Yeah, I mean, not to discount anything about the script, but I want to give you an honest answer here. And the reality is, we don't really get to choose necessarily. I wish I had the freedom to just say, I'm going to pick any story I want, and I'm going to find the money for it and produce it. One of the big things about it was that it was producible, right? It was shootable on a very small budget, which was very much the reality. But the other bonuses about it is I'm a huge Coen Brothers fan, and it has a lot of shades of Coen Brothers in it. I'm a big fan of A History of Violence. We were just talking about Cronenberg before this. So there's a lot of elements in the script that I really love. And then the other really interesting thing about it is it's a non-traditional ending. And I'm very curious to see if any discussion sort of starts about the way we end this film and the way Kevin is really a great writer when it comes to subverting your expectations. And the problem with subverting expectations is if you go too far, the audience doesn't like it, because we've trained ourselves to really like that 3-act structure, and especially in North America, that's our bread and butter, and we kind of want to see the same beats again and again. Even though we say we don't want that, it's the same story. There's a lot of criticism around like, don't change, don't tell me the same story over and over again, right? We've seen this story over and over again. But if you'll notice, there are films and television shows that have tried to veer off of that a little bit to be something a little bit new and fresh, and they are often attacked and criticized heavily. So that doesn't mean that there are simply bad films and bad, things that just don't do it well. But it's a delicate line, and I think what's exciting about it is we wanted to try something different. I'm happy to say that it's not a happy ending. It's not like, in fact, we don't really know who the hero is either. Like it's a lot of bad people doing bad things. And I think if you look at television recently, though, over the last 15 years or so, the rise of the anti-hero has been a big thing. When you look at shows like, I think, what am I thinking of?
There's Breaking Bad, which is the ultimate.
Yes, there you go. Absolutely. Great example. But even a show like Big Love, which is about, multiple marriage, right? Which, prior to watching that show, I was like, oh, having, that's a very foreign world and that seems very bad. And then I get to meet characters who are living that way. And it's like, oh, these are just human beings. And yeah, I don't necessarily agree, but it doesn't mean they're bad people. So I think there's been a lot of interesting work done in character around the anti-hero over the last 10 years, especially in TV. And so we're definitely working with some anti-heroes in our movie for sure.
That's awesome. So in Plainview, my understanding, it's a revenge thriller. It centers around a dirty ex-cop that is in hiding in WITSEC, witness protection.
That's right.
There's a bunch of not very pleasant people going after him for obviously revenge. What else can you tell me about the plot without revealing too many things that will get the viewer just glued to the screen?
Sure. I think one of the really interesting things about the movie is the cast of characters, and one of them is a townsperson who from this small town, Plainview, who sort of gets mixed up in the events going on, and he's kind of a guy who's watched too many movies, and for some reason is like almost like he was waiting for this to happen in his life, like guns and money, and he is in, and he gets sort of roped into this whole situation, and then he starts making some really crazy decisions that sort of throw the plot in directions that are not always comfortable, but are definitely unique. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to like the ending, again, it's a non-traditional ending. And what I love most about it is just seeing all these different characters. It's really, I mean, for me, I love watching performers perform. And so getting this big cast of characters, we have Sean Johnston playing a reverend. We've got Hank, the town's person that I was talking about. We've got Johnny Red in the bar. It's like this. It's this really cool, fun collection of characters, and they all play a part. And we also, we have Jesse Lipscomb as Lupus, this crazy mercenary guy who brings a lot of interesting fun to the role too. So yeah, I mean, it's really about this tapestry of different characters and how they weave and intersect and sort of miss each other. We've got these fun moments where people are looking for each other or trying to run from each other and just miss each other sometimes. It's very fun and cool.
I know that you spoke about characters and the personalities behind the characters. I know that you got Aaron Douglas, Chief from Battlestar Galactica, as your main character.
Yeah.
And so what was it like to work with the guy?
Yeah. So Aaron is a really interesting guy. So firstly, the first interesting story is that he is really interested in working on indie films. He's actually a big supporter of them. And he actually has a standing order with his agent to keep an eye on interesting, maybe smaller budget scripts that kind of come his way. And I actually knew this, and being a fan of his, I wanted to see if he might say yes to being a part of the movie. And he said that he read the script sort of expecting kind of an art house, talkie film, art film, and nothing wrong with that. And he's open to that. But the script is very different. I mean, In Plainview is more, I would say more has movies like, like Coen Brothers movies as a touchstone rather than sort of your average art house movie. And again, nothing wrong with any of those films. This is just not that film. And so he was excited about it. And so we talked and he jumped on board. And super nice guy. I mean, like the obviously our budget is incredibly low. Everyone was getting, far less than they deserve. and Aaron showed up and was, you know, buying everybody food. And on his last day of shooting, he also brought in a masseur, a masseuse for everybody. Like the whole cast and crew got to like, and it was cool because we were shooting in the Shamrock Hotel where we had like free run of this whole motel. So we had one of the motel rooms was the massage room. And so you could just go and take a 5-minute break and get a massage. And he's amazing. He's a really nice guy.
That's very, very cool. I've heard amazing stories about him, and I'm excited to see him in the role. Tell me a little bit about that mercenary character, Lupus. The reason why I'm asking is that I submitted a self-tape long time ago, and I used to have a bushier beard.
I forgot.
And there was a fantastic little monologue about what made the character different. So
I forgot that you auditioned, dude. I totally forgot that, and you had a great audition. I'm remembering it now. But yes, it is an interesting monologue, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fantastic. And what I like about films that actually care to tell tiny stories that really tell you the main motivation for the character in less than 2 minutes, and that's all you need to know. So tell me more about Lupus.
So Lupus is a really, you know, there are characters that are like there aren't that many, but and this is going to be a weird comparison, but I kind of love Danny Pudi in Community as Abed. And the interesting thing that, because they were able to use that character to sort of subvert the genre and the claymation episodes, and, you know, you could kind of live inside his head. And so we very slightly use Lupus in the same way, in that it's clear that he's not perhaps all there psychologically. And that's maybe why he's able to be a killer and a mercenary. But we actually used music to a really interesting effect. And I don't know if anybody will notice this, and this is the first time I've ever told anyone about it, but Lupus has his own theme. And if you'll remember in that audition, he talks about being beat up by some ice cream truck boys, and when he was younger. And so Alec Harrison, the composer of all the music in the film, he snuck in a little bit of like ice cream truck tones in his music, and it just comes off as like so crazy, and so like this guy is not well, and so that was at least one way we could sort of like break through. And music is incredible that way. The way you can use music in film is just, it doesn't get enough attention because it's so powerful. If you're not using like a narration or a voice in someone's head, it's the best way to tell the audience what's going on in someone's head is with music. And so yeah, we got to use that character in a really unique way with some music, and I'm excited for people to see it.
I'm excited to see it as well. Now, as the director, I'm sure you faced a lot of challenges in pre-production, production, and post. What was, you say, your most headache moment where you said, oh man, I have no idea how to get this done, and how did you get through it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, for this question, I have to just hats off, although I won't reveal my receding hairline, but hats off to Scott Westby, the producer of the film, because he was the blocker of all these challenges that came up. He was, writer, director, producers, like it's not fun when you're producing and directing and you're like, hey, I really want to dig into the meat of the scene and work with the actors. And then someone's like, oh, there's an insurance issue that we have to deal with. And you're like, I'm trying to focus on creativity right now. And so thankfully Scott was there to sort of be the one to catch all that stuff, and did it incredibly well. And I know that as it was happening, I was sort of semi-aware of it, but he went through an absolute, gauntlet to get us one of our really important locations, which is it's called Perino Ranch, and it's one of the early homesteads in Alberta. It was a log house at first, and then a real house was created, and we've got this brilliant shot of the house, and it's just sort of on the prairie, and it's beautiful and brilliant. And the problem with it was that it was owned by, and it still is owned by, not owned by, but it's a historical site that the government owns. And so ACAD at the time, they've now changed their name to the Alberta University of art and design or something like that. So they're the ones who are the stewards of the location. It's under their purview to sort of manage the location. And what they do is they send artists out there for like artist retreats. So the downside is there's no running water, so you have to bring your own water. It's because there's E. coli in the water. So they're not gonna invest a ton of money to like revitalize it, but they're also not going to knock it down or get rid of it or anything. So it's sort of one of these spaces that is great for film production because it exists, it's beautiful, nobody's using it, and so we were able to get in there. But getting that house and getting the paperwork and legal and insurance side of it figured out was really, really challenging. And it came down to, I think, about maybe even a day or maybe 2 days before we had to be in there that we finally got it. And it had to be, we had to be shooting, we had to move furniture into it. It was empty, right? Like, so we had to dress it. And so that was a massive challenge. And I'm sure Scott lost some hair as well over that one.
Well, the challenges of filmmaking are also what makes filmmaking rewarding, because once you go through those challenges and you're able to achieve what you wanted on screen, you know it was worth it.
Exactly.
And without divulging too much about the plot, what is your favorite scene of the film?
Ooh, actually, yeah. I mean, one of my favorite moments to shoot, I can't really talk about it for avoiding spoilers. But you know what? Sometimes you fight tooth and nail to find a good shot or an interesting angle, and sometimes the film gods smile upon you and just hand you something incredible. And we were shooting at the Shamrock Hotel, and the Shamrock Hotel had this weird fire escape that we could use. I mean, we had free run of the whole place. So as soon as I saw this fire escape, I was like, oh, we're using that. We're going to make that into something that we're going to put in the movie. It wasn't on the page, but it was just like, oh man, that's so cool. Because what it did was it was like on a pulley system. So you would step down and it would sort of drop as you were stepping down. And if you add some motion to the camera, and which of course we did. So that was just one of those magic moments that just fell into our laps that we could sort of employ, which is really fun.
That's awesome. And the happy accidents that get captured on camera are sometimes, well, hopefully they make it into the film, but also they are, one of those magical moments that make movie making actual magic.
Yes.
Out of the stuff that didn't end up in the movie that you did shoot, why did you cut it?
Oh man, you know what? This is a good question, and nobody's asked this yet, but I think we didn't cut anything. And going back to your original question of like, why did we choose this script? I mean, it was kind of because it was so shootable. And part of being shootable is there's no fat on it, right? Like there was nothing to cut. We worked with Kevin once we knew we were going to production to trim things down and trim things out. And I can tell you that one scene that would have been fun to shoot that we did lose was it was in like a commercial kitchen, and one person is trying to get information out of another person by throwing his hand in a deep fryer, which would have been so fun and so great. But like, we were like, that's so hard to shoot. Like, how do we do that? And it would have been doable, of course, but it was obviously an expensive thing that had to go just to make it so that we could make our days. I mean, Robert Cuffley is this incredible filmmaker. His first movie was called Turning Page, and he's worked with Jason Long, who also helped out on the film a lot. He just released a movie called Bright Hill Road. And he was kind enough to be sort of an executive producer, director, mentor for me. And when he read the script through the first time, he knew that we were only going to have 15 days to shoot. And so when we sat down for a meeting with him, he had just read the script and he was like, I've made 5 movies and I couldn't shoot this in 20 days. So if you're going to try and shoot it in 15, you're going to have to make some changes. So yeah, to answer your question, we didn't cut anything because we cut it all at the script stage. It didn't really make it to shooting because we couldn't afford it.
Totally makes sense. And budgetary reasons are a fantastic way of, making your film very focused on the story you want to tell, and sometimes be conscious of, hey, we got to shoot this and we don't have the time to make it as pretty as I would like to.
Yeah, and it forces you to get more creative, for sure.
Absolutely. So one last question and I'll let you go. If you had to shoot, the ideal film in your mind, compared to what you shot? Would you change anything, or will you keep your film as is?
Oh man, I would don't don't ask that, man. Sometimes I'll watch it through and I'll go, I love everything about it, and then sometimes I'll watch it through and be like, I would redo this and I would redo that. And so it's interesting to sort of sit back and critique your own work sometimes. But yeah, I mean, there's always more that I would have liked to add or change or do. The upside is our cast is unbelievable and the performances are so fantastic. And our DP, Brad Stukel, who doesn't get enough love and attention, incredible work. So there's a lot that I really love in it. But I have to say, being on the other side of it, yeah, I've learned so much. And dude, we actually shot it in 2016, so I've learned a ton more now. So asking me that question now is like, I would change a ton of things. The camera doesn't move enough, which is a pretty common rookie mistake. Should have moved the camera more. That's an easy thing to say. It's hard to move the camera sometimes in a way that's really pleasing to the eye and makes sense in the scene. But if it can be done, it's a good idea. So yeah. And another thing is my transitions, the way I transition from one scene to another. Boy, I would think more through that. I mean, it's interesting when you're on set, how you're in the moment of the scene. And one of my biggest flaws, I think, as a director was I wasn't thinking enough about the scene that comes before it. Because of course the scene we shot before it was not the scene that comes before it in the movie, because you don't shoot movies in order. And I also wasn't thinking enough about the scene that comes after it. So that would have played more into the way I transition from scene to scene had I been thinking that way a bit more. But a first feature is going to be a learning experience for most people, unless you're Cronenberg's son, I guess.
Well, I'm sure that people gathered some experience of being on set and seeing other people make mistakes and thinking, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's a busy day. Anything else that the viewer should know about the film?
Just to check out inplainview.ca, and we are going to be on some streaming platforms on Friday, January 29th. I'm not sure when you may already be able to see it, so check out our social media or our webpage to find out where you can see it. And keep an eye out later this year for Jonesin, which is our next film that Scott, the producer, directed and I produced. So we switched roles for this film. It's really fun and super funny, also written by Kevin Dory. And we're hoping to get it into the film festival circuit sort of mid this year.
That's fantastic. Well, Matt, I'm really looking forward to checking out In Plainview. Again, inplainview.ca will have all the information you need about where it's going to be released in streaming. And guys, you got to check it out. I'm super excited about this film being done in Alberta, featuring Alberta prairies, locations, amazing cast, interesting plot. You say it's an unusual ending, so I'm looking forward to that as well. Matt, you're a rock star. This is not the last time we chat. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And one more thing that might be relevant to your audience is we've done a great behind the scenes. Actually, Kara Artem, who's an incredible filmmaker, followed us around during the making of the whole film. So if folks are looking for more information about the making of stuff, we've got that on our social media, and it should be an extra on. I can say that it'll be on Apple TV. So you might be able to find it as an extra, although that might take some weeks for it to appear. But it should be there eventually.
Cool. I really hope I can check that out, because the filmmaking process is the little bit of salt that makes everything more delicious.
Totally. Well, as we record this, I'm about to launch the third episode. So we broke it into 8 pieces.
Oh.
But we're gonna have the whole 8 pieces as one available as an extra. But it's on. We're putting them all out on social media. So yeah, today is Thursday, so we're dropping the third episode of 8. So it's on our social.
Where do we find you on social media?
It's I think it's Plainview Movie on everything. So facebook.com/Plainview Movie, and on Instagram and Twitter as well.
I'll add a few links to the comments.
Thanks, man.
Really appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
This has been a blast.
Yeah, thank you.